Hey everyone. Welcome to Six Path Weeb. Today, we're diving into an exciting what-if scenario. What if Naruko was born during the era of the legendary Sannin? Imagine a world where she grows up alongside Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru. How would that change her journey? Let's explore. Disclaimer, this video is purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage used, full credit goes to the original creators and copyright holders. Now, let's get started. The conclusion of the Fourth Great Shinobi War. Standing alone on the battlefield off the southern coast of the Land of Fire is a single figure. She stands at 5 feet 8 inches with a strong yet agile frame, exuding an aura of unmatched determination. Her golden blonde hair spikes wildly, and her deep blue eyes have now shifted to a mesmerizing purple, encircled by 3 concentric rings, each adorned with 3 tomoe, the Rinnegan. 3 whisker-like markings rest on each of her cheeks. She wears a battle-worn, tattered dark orange tracksuit with black accents along the shoulders, zipper, and pant legs. Black shinobi sandals cover her feet, and beneath her jacket, she wears mesh armor. A forehead protector with the Hidden Leaf Village's symbol sits proudly on her brow. This young woman is Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze, a chunin of the Hidden Leaf, the Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox, Kurama, and a hero of the village. She is the daughter of the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze, and the formidable Kushina Uzumaki. Most recently, she is the last remaining warrior standing at the end of the Fourth Great Shinobi War. As Naruko surveys the battlefield, she feels a deep sorrow for the countless lives affected by the conflict. The war had seemed to be turning in their favor. The revelation that the man claiming to be Madara Uchiha was, in truth, Obito Uchiha, her father's former student, had been shocking. The reanimated shinobi army had been difficult to overcome, but the allied forces had managed to seal most of them away and even stop the summoner of the reanimation jutsu, Kabuto. However, things took a turn when the real Madara Uchiha prevented himself from being undone by the end of the technique. The legendary shinobi, once revered as nearly invincible alongside his longtime rival, the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, overwhelmed the 5 Kage, leaving them critically wounded. He then joined forces with Obito in a battle against Naruko and Killer Bee, the Jinchuriki of the 8 Tails. Despite their strength, they were overpowered, and both of their tailed beasts were extracted to complete the revival of the 10 Tails. Just when the situation seemed dire, another unexpected arrival changed the battlefield: Sasuke Uchiha, along with his team, Hawk, and Orochimaru. The rogue Sannin, surprisingly, aided in healing the Kage, and moments later, 4 more figures appeared, reanimated versions of the first 4 Hokage, Hashirama Senju, Tobirama Senju, Hiruzen Sarutobi, and Minato Namikaze. Together, the revived Hokage, the living Kage, Team Hawk, and Orochimaru joined the fight to aid Naruko and Bee. The battle raged on. Naruko, critically injured, was healed by her teammate Sakura, and her father, Minato, transferred his portion of Kurama's chakra into her. With renewed strength, Team 7, Naruko, Sasuke, and Sakura, reunited to take on the Uchiha foes. Naruko successfully convinced Obito to change his path, but Madara took control of him, forcing him to use the Rinnegan to bring Madara back to life. Now fully revived, Madara became the Jinchuriki of the 10 Tails, making him even more formidable. At a critical moment, both Naruko and Sasuke were visited by the Sage of 6 Paths, Hagoromo Otsutsuki. The sage revealed that they were the reincarnations of his 2 sons, Indra and Asura, the ancestors of the Uchiha and Senju clans. He granted them special abilities. Naruko received his powerful chakra and the sun mark on her right hand, while Sasuke was given the Rinnegan in one eye and the moon mark on his left hand. Additionally, Naruko inherited a portion of chakra from all the tailed beasts. With their newfound power, the duo fought Madara on equal footing, even managing to gain the upper hand. However, before they could finish him, Madara's body began to transform, evolving into a new form. Before their eyes, he became a woman with an ethereal, noble presence, long, flowing white hair, 2 curved horns, the Byakugan, and a 3rd eye on her forehead. She wore a regal, high-collared kimono decorated with intricate gold and purple patterns. This was Kaguya Otsutsuki, the mother of the Sage of 6 Paths and the original wielder of chakra. The battle reached a new level of intensity. To protect Naruko and the others, Obito made a great sacrifice, passing his abilities to Kakashi. In the final confrontation, Naruko and Sasuke used their combined strength and the marks bestowed by the sage to seal Kaguya away, aided by Sakura's crucial final strike. Just as the battle seemed to be over and the spirits of the sage and past Kage began to depart, Sasuke made an unexpected move. He turned against them, intending to capture the tailed beast to reshape the world in his own way. Determined to stop him, Naruko, Sakura, and Kakashi confronted him. Their efforts led to another intense battle, one that ended in heartbreak as Sasuke overpowered Sakura and Kakashi. Now facing him alone, Naruko struggled with the reality that her former teammate was willing to go to such lengths. Despite wanting to believe in him, the final breaking point came when Sasuke targeted the five Kage, including Tsunade Senju and Gaara, both of whom were dear to Naruko. With no other choice, Naruko fought at full strength. The battle between the two warriors, now wielding power beyond imagination, shook the very land itself. Naruko, determined to bring an end to the conflict, unleashed the full might of her abilities, engaging Sasuke in a final clash, her Ashura avatar against his Susanoo avatar. In the end, Naruko emerged victorious, using her original technique, the Rasen Shuriken, to end the battle. As Sasuke lay on the ground, he looked up at Naruko and, with a bittersweet smile, acknowledged her strength. In his final moments, he made an unexpected request. He told Naruko to take his eyes and use them to guide the world toward a peaceful future. And thus, Naruko, the last standing warrior of the war, now possessed the legendary Rinnegan, carrying the responsibility of shaping a new era. After shaking off the troubling memories of the past few days, the blonde-haired girl turned toward the lingering spirits of the sage in the cage, as well as the reincarnated Hokage. Her father stepped forward, his expression filled with sorrow. "Naruko, I'm so sorry for everything you've had to endure. I can't help but feel responsible. If only I had been faster that night, there would have been no need to seal Kurama inside you. You wouldn't have had to face all these challenges because of my choices." The younger blonde shook her head sadly. "It's not your fault, To-san. You did what you had to do. No, I place the blame on the generations before yours. If only they had learned to work together instead of competing for superiority, then the world wouldn't have given rise to people like Madara Uchiha." Minato nodded solemnly, as did the other Kage. However, Hagoromo suddenly had an idea. What if you could change that? What if you had the chance to go back in time, before the Akatsuki, before even the Second Shinobi War? Would you take that opportunity to change the course of history? Everyone looked at him in shock, but Naruko didn't hesitate for even a second before answering. "Yes. If it means I can save people from experiencing the hardships caused by the wars, then I'd do it." The old sage smiled. "Good. Then I will give you that chance. There is a technique I know that allows someone to travel back in time. However, it requires an immense amount of chakra, which is why I never used it to prevent my mother from eating the chakra fruit." The spirit of the third Kazekage, always the sharp thinker, asked, "If that's the case, then how will you perform it now? You're just as much a spirit as we are." The old man chuckled. "An inquisitive mind, you remind me of my son, Asura, always questioning everything. The answer is simple. With the chakra of the four Hokage, my own sons and daughters, the tailed beasts, we will have more than enough energy for the technique. However, all of you will need to help with the hand signs, as there are thousands." Everyone nodded in understanding, including all 9 tailed beasts, who were more than willing to assist their father. Hagoromo turned to Naruko. "Say your goodbyes. Once you have, there are a few things we need to discuss about the technique." She nodded and turned to the first Hokage first. "Lord First, it has been an honor to meet you. I always heard stories about your strength, but seeing you in action was something else. You're probably the most incredible Hokage ever." Hashirama laughed, rubbing the back of his head with a wide grin. "Thank you, Naruko-san. I want to wish you the best of luck in the past. I'll probably already be gone by the time you arrive, but I'll be watching how you change the world." Naruko shook his hand before turning to the second Hokage. "Lord Second, you're just as serious and pragmatic as Iruka-sensei always described. But you're also incredibly strong and skilled. I had no idea that you were the one who originally developed my dad's technique. That's amazing. You are a true role model for what a shinobi should be." Tobirama crossed his arms but allowed a small smirk to appear. "Thank you, Uzumaki-san. Normally, I'd remind you about the importance of stealth over bright colors, but you've shown me that a shinobi's true strength lies in remaining true to themselves. Never lose that spirit. My brother and I will be watching from the other side." He patted her shoulder before stepping back. Next in line was someone who nearly made Naruko tear up. She took a deep breath and smiled at the elderly Hokage. "Gigi, you taught me the will of fire, but more than that, you showed me what it's like to have a grandfather. You were always there for me, and I know you did your best to give me a normal life. I'll always be grateful for that. I hope that when I go back, we can have an even closer bond, like family." I missed you so much when you were gone, but I knew you would want me to keep moving forward. I've tried my best, and I hope I've made you proud. Sarutobi pulled her into a warm embrace. Naruko-kun, you have made this old man incredibly proud. I've watched from the Pure Land and seen the person you've become. You truly embody the will of fire and have grown into a splendid shinobi. No matter what time period you end up in, I have no doubt you will achieve your dreams. Stay strong. After he stepped back, Naruko turned to her father for a private moment. Minato gazed at her, taking in her features, a mixture of himself and his beloved Kushina. He smiled warmly. Naruko, today is your birthday. How old are you now? She looked up at him with a bittersweet smile. I'm 17 today, Dad. Minato's smile grew. 17, huh? You're practically an adult. I couldn't be prouder of the person you've become. And if your mother were here, she'd feel the same way. Though she'd probably be making sure you weren't getting into too much trouble. Naruko chuckled at that. Do you really think Ka-chan would be proud of me? Minato nodded. Without a doubt. She'd be thrilled to see how strong and kind you've become. Never forget this, no matter where you go, your mother and I love you. Tears welled up in her eyes as she threw herself into her father's arms, hugging him tightly. He gently patted her back, letting the moment linger. After a few minutes, they stepped apart, and Naruko turned to the Sage of Six Paths. Alright, Sannin Gigi, tell me everything about this jutsu. Hagoromo chuckled at her enthusiasm. Alright. First, we're aiming to send you back to a few years after the First Shinobi War. Secondly, you won't be going back as you are now. The technique will either de-age you or send your spirit and chakra into a newborn. Naruko's jaw dropped. What? I can't go back as a baby. I'd have to start from scratch with all my techniques. I'd rather be de-aged. How much younger would I be? Hagoromo shook his head. If de-aged, you would return to around 4 years old. You will still retain the abilities gifted to you by the tailed beasts, as well as the Rinnegan and Six Paths Sage mode. However, you won't have access to the Rin Sharingan or Six Paths mode right away, you'll need to train to unlock them again. The same applies to your elemental abilities, including lava, magnet, and boil releases. Naruko crossed her arms. That makes sense. Alright, I don't mind training again. This time, I can properly learn Fuin Jutsu and maybe even improve the second Hokage's teleportation technique. Anything else I should know? Hagoromo nodded. Yes. Thanks to the Rinnegan, you now have a strong affinity for all 5 elements. Additionally, you will gain the ability to use ice and wood release, but you'll need to work to unlock them. Also, your appearance will change slightly, your hair will turn red, as is common among the Uzumaki. Lastly, your summoning contract with the toads will be voided, so you'll need to find a new summoning partner. Perhaps even one from the canine family. Naruko took a deep breath and nodded. Alright. Let's do this. Naruko's face brightens at the mention of gaining the wood release ability and her first true friend Haku's ice release. A smile spreads across her face at the thought of inheriting her mother's beautiful red hair. However, her excitement dims slightly at the mention of losing the toads, completely missing the subtle hint of which new summoning contract she might gain instead. Taking a deep breath, she nods with determination. Alright, I understand. Let's get started, Six Paths Gigi. The Sage of Six Paths smiles, nodding as he signals the gathered cage to begin their hand signs. He joins them in the intricate process, while the tailed beasts focus their chakra, causing a brilliant flare of light to envelop the area. As the technique reaches completion and the necessary energy is gathered, the ancient sage intones. Hidden Samsara Technique, Space-Time Transportation. With those words, a tear in space and time opens before Naruko. She takes one last look at her father and the other Hokage before steeling herself and leaping into the swirling vortex of lights. Moments later, the yang half of Kurama follows, and the portal seals shut behind them. As the bodies of the 4 Hokage begin to fade away, Minato turns to the Sage of Six Paths. Are you certain this will work? Will Naruko truly be able to change things? The legendary sage regards him with a serious expression. I have the utmost faith in her. She is the current reincarnation of my son, Asura. While she cannot change everything, she will undoubtedly influence the course of events. The second and third wars will still occur, but her presence will alter their outcomes. Over time, she will bridge the gaps between nations and prevent groups like the Akatsuki from ever forming. In the end, all you can do is believe in your daughter, just as I believed in my own son. Minato nods, a small but hopeful smile on his face as he fully fades away, along with the spirits of the other cage. Meanwhile, Hagoromo turns to the remaining 8 tailed beasts and smiles. You are all free now, my children. Live your lives as you see fit. Farewell. With those parting words, he vanishes back to his own dimension, while the tailed beasts disperse, each going their separate way. Inside the portal. A wave of intense pressure surrounds Naruko as she is hurled through time, her body tingling with an odd sensation. She feels her bones shifting and shrinking, an unmistakable sign that she is de-aging. The glowing tunnel around her is filled with fleeting images of the past, playing in reverse, showcasing the history of the elemental nations. Suddenly, a powerful surge of chakra floods her system, catching her off guard. In her dazed state, she mentally reaches out. Kurama, what's happening? What's going on? The deep, familiar voice of her partner responds from within her mindscape. Apologies, Kit. That surge just now was my yang half reuniting with me. The good news is that I'm whole again, which means you'll have more of my power available. The challenge, however, is that your chakra reserves will be twice what they originally were when you were 4. That means a lot more chakra control training ahead. Naruko sighs internally. Just great. But after a moment, she considers the silver lining. Perhaps this time, she'll finally refine her chakra control enough to master genjutsu or even medical ninjutsu. Just as the thought crosses her mind, the portal ahead bursts open. She braces herself, knowing she's about to arrive at her destination. Hidden Leaf Village, Training Ground 7. 1 year after the First War, 1 YAFW. The skies above the village darken, thick clouds rolling in unnaturally. The shift in the atmosphere puts the shinobi on high alert. They can tell this is no ordinary weather change. At Training Ground 7, a brilliant flash of light erupts, accompanied by a powerful explosion that sends birds and small animals scattering. As the dust settles, the spatial rift vanishes, leaving behind a small figure at the center of a crater. Naruko, now a 4-year-old child, lies unconscious within the impact site. Her appearance has changed drastically. Instead of golden blonde, her hair is now a striking shade of red, still spiky but much shorter than before. The distinct whisker marks on her cheeks have disappeared. She is dressed in a white t-shirt bearing the Uzumaki clan spiral, tan shorts, and white shinobi sandals. Within moments, a group of masked shinobi arrive, swiftly surrounding the crater. These elite warriors, clad in distinctive white animal masks, belong to the Anbu, the village's covert operations unit. Leading them is a young man, standing at 5 feet 4 inches, with tan skin, spiky dark brown hair, a small goatee, and sharp brown eyes. He wears a black jumpsuit with mesh sections covering parts of his limbs, a green gauntlet over his right arm, and an armored hood. Over his forehead protector, a bandana is tied with 2 long straps, and on the back of his jumpsuit, the kanji for third Hokage is proudly displayed. This man is Hiruzen Sarutobi, the newly appointed third Hokage and one of the most formidable shinobi of his time. Taking in the scene, Hiruzen quickly assesses that there is no immediate threat. He signals for his team to stand down before stepping into the crater to examine the unconscious child. Carefully turning Naruko over, he checks for injuries. After a thorough inspection, he finds no visible wounds but senses that she is suffering from extreme chakra exhaustion. One of the Anbu, wearing a cat-shaped mask, steps forward. Lord Hokage, should we check for hidden threats? This could be a trick. Hiruzen shakes his head. No, that won't be necessary. I've already checked, and there's nothing to indicate a trap. The child is experiencing chakra exhaustion and needs medical attention. Based on the red hair and the clan emblem on her clothing, she is most likely an Uzumaki. If that's the case, she is to be protected. We'll have to wait for her to wake up to learn how she arrived here. You are all dismissed. With swift precision, the Anbu vanish using the body flicker technique, returning to their respective posts. Meanwhile, Hiruzen personally transports Naruko to the village hospital, ensuring she receives the proper care. Upon arrival, he explains the situation to the medical staff, who immediately begin administering treatment for chakra exhaustion. Hiruzen also orders that she be placed in a private room and that he be notified as soon as she regains consciousness. With everything settled at the hospital, the Hokage makes his way toward the Senju compound, intending to consult with the esteemed Mito Uzumaki Senju, the matriarch of the Uzumaki clan. Senju compound, a short while later. A few minutes after setting out, Sarutobi arrived at the Senju compound, one of the 3 largest in the village, alongside those of the Uchiha and Hyuga clans. The compound functioned like a small village, enclosed by sturdy wooden walls reinforced with various protective seals. As he made his way through its streets, he noted that some houses stood empty, a lingering reminder of those who had been lost in the First War, which had ended only a year ago. Many of the remaining clan members greeted him warmly as he passed, to which he responded with polite nods. Eventually, he reached his destination, the main house, home to the Senju clan leader. The two-story structure reflected traditional Japanese architecture, featuring shoji doors and a large emblem above the entrance displaying the Senju clan's symbol, a vajra. He knocked on the door and waited. Moments later, the door slid open, though not by the person he had expected. Instead, a small girl stood before him. She had long blonde hair tied into short twin pigtails, fair skin, and bright brown eyes that sparkled with curiosity. Her youthful cheeks held a rosy tint, and she wore a cream-colored sundress. This child was Tsunade Senju, granddaughter of Mito Uzumaki and the late first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. As the second in line to the Senju clan, following her father, she already carried a proud heritage. Recognizing the visitor, Tsunade beamed. "Oh. Saru Oji, you're here. Ba-chan is in the sitting room. Come on, I'll take you to her." With enthusiasm befitting her age, she took his hand and attempted to guide him inside. Chuckling at her eagerness, Hiruzen allowed himself to be led, first remembering to remove his sandals at the entryway. As they walked, Tsunade chattered excitedly about her training and her experiences at the academy, which she had just joined earlier that year. Hiruzen responded with small comments, indulging her enthusiasm. However, she suddenly asked, "Saru Oji-san, why do you need to talk to Ba-chan?" Her question caught the Hokage slightly off guard, but he quickly composed himself. "It's a personal matter, Tsunade-chan. I'm sure Mito-sama will tell you about it when the time is right." Though she pouted briefly at the vague answer, it did not last long. They soon reached the sitting room, and she slid the door open with an eager announcement. "Ba-chan. Saru Oji is here to see you." Inside, a woman sat gracefully. Though she was over 50, she appeared no older than 30. Her long, vibrant red hair framed her face, and her large, pupilless eyes carried a depth of wisdom. She wore an elegant high-collared kimono with the Uzushio Gakure symbol adorning the back of her obi. Her hair was styled into intricate buns, accented with decorative hairpins and kanji-inscribed tags. A gem-like marking rested on her forehead, and her lips were painted a deep shade of red. This was Mito Uzumaki Senju, renowned as one of the most formidable kunoichi in history. At the sight of her granddaughter and her husband's former student, Mito's lips curved into a soft smile. "Su-chan, how many times have I told you not to barge in like that?" Tsunade scowled slightly but mumbled an apology. "Sorry, Ba-chan." Mito gave a small nod before shifting her attention to Hiruzen. "Saru-chan, it's good to see you. I'm surprised you managed to step away from your duties. Is this a social visit, or is it official Hokage business?" The 21-year-old sighed at her continued use of Saru-chan but let it slide. "A bit of both, Mito-sama. I need to speak with you privately about an unusual incident that occurred about an hour ago." Understanding the gravity of his tone, Mito turned back to Tsunade. "Su-chan, why don't you go play with the other children for a while?" The little blonde nodded and ran off. Sarutobi stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind him. Moments later, a faint blue glow spread through the space before fading, signaling the activation of a privacy seal. Seating himself on a mat opposite Mito, Hiruzen began, "As you may have noticed, an hour ago, the sky over the village suddenly darkened." Mito nodded in acknowledgement as he continued. "I quickly realized it wasn't a natural occurrence. Initially, I feared it might be an attack from Cloud Village, possibly using their storm release users. However, that wasn't the case. Instead, a sudden explosion erupted in Training Ground 7. I immediately mobilized a squad of Onbu and went to investigate. What we found was unexpected." Mito's brow arched slightly. "And what exactly did you find?" Hiruzen exhaled before answering. At the center of the explosion was a crater, clearly caused by the impact. But inside, there wasn't an enemy ninja. Instead, there was a child. Mito's eyes widened slightly. "A child? How old?" Hiruzen nodded. "About the same age as Tsunade-chan, around 4 years old. But what's most unusual is that, despite being at the center of such a powerful explosion, the child had no injuries. The only sign of distress was chakra exhaustion. After confirming there were no hidden dangers, I ordered the Onbu to resume their posts and took the child to the hospital, where they are currently receiving treatment." Mito let out a small sigh of relief before tilting her head in curiosity. "It's good that the child is safe, but I don't see why you came here to tell me this specifically." Hiruzen chuckled sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head. "Well, what I didn't mention was that the child has red hair, deep, Unmistakable crimson. And they were wearing a shirt with the Uzumaki clan symbol on the front. Given these details, I suspect they may be a member of your clan. Mito sighed, giving him a look of mild reproach. Saru-chan, you should have mentioned that first. But just because the child has red hair and wears my clan's symbol doesn't necessarily mean they are an Uzumaki. Hiruzen nodded in agreement. That's true. But there's an easy way to confirm. First, once the child wakes, we can ask them directly. Second, we can assess their chakra reserves once they recover. Mito considered his words and gave a small nod. The conversation soon shifted to other matters, but when Mito casually inquired about his personal life, Sarutobi decided it was time to leave. As he stepped back to the entryway and slid his sandals on, the front door opened, revealing a tall man entering the house. He stood at 5 feet 10 inches, with straight dark brown hair, warm brown eyes, and lightly tanned skin. This was Atama Senju, son of Mito and Hashirama, father of Tsunade, and heir to the Senju clan. His name honored one of Hashirama's brothers, a reminder of the family's enduring legacy. Sarutobi greeted him with a nod, preparing to leave as the Senju heir stepped inside. Leaf Village, a brief meeting. Atama smiled warmly upon seeing his friend. Hiruzen. Good to see you. Are you heading out? Hiruzen returned the smile and nodded. Yes, I am. I was visiting with your mother, but now I have to return to my greatest foe. Paperwork. Atama chuckled and patted Hiruzen on the shoulder. I don't envy you, my friend. Being Hokage comes with its challenges. Well, take care, and try to visit again soon. We'll have a sparring match when you do. The younger man nodded before stepping inside his home, while Hiruzen disappeared in a blur, heading back to the Hokage Tower. Leaf Hospital, 2 days later. A soft groan escaped Naruko as she slowly regained consciousness. The first thing she noticed was the strong scent of disinfectant, instantly recognizing where she was. Great. The hospital. The one place I really don't like. How long have I been here? Opening her eyes, she was met with the familiar white ceiling, confirming her thoughts. As she lifted her small hand, she realized that the old sage's technique had worked, the transformation was complete. Moments later, a nurse entered the room to check her vitals. Upon seeing her awake, the woman smiled warmly. Oh, you're awake, little one. How are you feeling? Naruko took a moment before responding. I think I'm okay. How long have I been asleep, Nurse San? The nurse chuckled at the polite address. My name is Nanase. You've been resting for 2 days due to chakra exhaustion. Now, just relax while I check on your condition. Naruko nodded as the nurse formed a few hand signs, scanning her chakra levels. Her eyes widened slightly at the results. Naruko's chakra reserves were astonishingly high, even for someone her age. However, she quickly masked her surprise and smiled reassuringly. Well, everything seems to be in order. You have quite an impressive amount of chakra for a 4-year-old. Naruko flushed slightly at the praise. Thank you. So, can I leave now? Nanase shook her head gently. Not just yet. The Hokage needs to be informed that you're awake, and I'm sure he'll have a few questions for you. Until then, just rest up. I'll bring you some breakfast shortly. With that, she stepped out to inform the guard outside the room to summon the Hokage. A few minutes later, she returned with a tray of food. Naruko sighed as she took a bite. The taste was far from pleasant, but she forced herself to eat. As she was finishing her meal, the door opened, and Sarutobi stepped inside. Seeing him, Naruko's eyes widened slightly in recognition, though she quickly composed herself. The third Hokage smiled as he approached her bedside. Well, it's good to see you awake, young one. You were in quite a state when we found you. The nurse tells me your chakra has fully recovered, and once you receive a few precautionary shots, you'll be free to leave. Naruko made a small face at the mention of shots but nodded in understanding. Hiruzen continued, Now, I have a few questions for you. Can you tell me your name? After a brief pause, Naruko decided to use her real name. My name is Naruko Uzumaki. Who are you, mister? The older man chuckled. My name is Hiruzen Sarutobi, and I am the third Hokage. It's nice to meet you, Naruko-kun. Now, can you tell me how you ended up here in the Leaf Village? Naruko's mind raced as she tried to think of a believable explanation. After a moment, she put on a solemn expression and began her story. I'm not sure how I got here, Lord Hokage. I lived with my parents in the Land of Waves. But recently, something happened to them, and I was left on my own. They always told me we came from a strong lineage, but they never explained further. However, They said that if I ever needed help, I should come to the Hidden Leaf Village. I was planning to travel here in a few years, but then I found a strange seal among my father's belongings. When I touched it, it activated, and the next thing I knew, I woke up here. Sarutobi listened carefully, noting a few inconsistencies but choosing not to press her on them just yet. I see, he said thoughtfully. It sounds like you may have stumbled upon an experimental teleportation seal. You're fortunate that it only caused chakra exhaustion. Your parents were right, you do come from a proud lineage. You are a member of the Uzumaki clan of the Land of Whirlpools. The Uzumaki clan is well known for their exceptional chakra reserves, longevity, and expertise in sealing techniques and swordsmanship. Naruko's eyes lit up with excitement at this revelation. Hiruzen smiled at her enthusiasm and continued, additionally, the Uzumaki clan has strong ties to one of the founding clans of the Leaf, the Senju. In fact, the current head of the Senju clan is a woman named Mito Uzumaki Senju. I believe she would be more than happy to take you in as her kin. She also has a granddaughter around your age, I'm sure you'll get along. Naruko beamed at the prospect of having a family. Good, Sarutobi said with a nod. After your shots, I'll take you to meet Mito-sama. The red-haired girl tilted her head in curiosity. Why do you call her Mito-sama? Aren't you the leader of the village? Hiruzen chuckled. That's true, but Mito-sama is the widow of the first Hokage and holds great respect in the village. Everyone addresses her with honor, except for her close family. Naruko nodded in understanding as she finished her meal. Soon after, the medical staff came in to administer her shots and run a few basic tests. Once everything was done, she changed back into her clothes, and Sarutobi led her out of the hospital toward the Senju compound. Senju clan compound. As they walked through the village, Sarutobi and Naruko talked casually, helping her feel more at ease. Eventually, they arrived at the Senju compound. Naruko's eyes widened in awe at the sight of the enormous estate. This is where I'm going to live? She gasped. It's huge. Sarutobi chuckled. You're not wrong. The first Hokage himself built this compound using his unique wood release technique. Mito-sama later reinforced the entire structure with powerful sealing techniques, making the wooden buildings as strong as steel. I imagine she may teach you similar skills in the future. Naruko nodded eagerly as they approached the main house. Sarutobi knocked on the door, and a moment later, it opened to reveal Mito Uzumaki Senju herself. Hiruzen greeted her with a respectful bow. Mito-sama, it's good to see you again. I have someone for you to meet. He gently guided Naruko forward. Mito Uzumaki Senju, meet Naruko Uzumaki. Naruko, this is Mito Uzumaki Senju. Mito studied the young girl with a discerning gaze, noting her red hair and unmistakable Uzumaki traits. As she extended her senses, she confirmed that Naruko had an incredible amount of chakra for someone so young. Only 4 years old, and already possessing chakra reserves on par with a Chunin. There's no doubt, she's truly an Uzumaki. Her expression softened as she smiled warmly. She bent down slightly to meet Naruko at eye level. It's wonderful to meet you, Naruko-kun. Welcome to your new home, I hope you find it comfortable. Naruko bowed her head respectfully. Thank you, Mito-sama. It's nice to meet you too. I've never met any of my family before. Mito's eyes saddened briefly, but she quickly replaced the expression with a gentle smile. She lifted Naruko's chin with her hand. No need for formalities, little one. We're family. You may call me Mito Obasan. Now, come inside and meet the rest of your new family. Hiruzen smiled at the warm exchange. I'll take care of the paperwork to have her enrolled in the academy. Mito nodded gratefully. Thank you, Saru-chan. And with that, Naruko stepped into her new home, ready to start a new chapter in her life. She quickly brings Naruko inside and shuts the door before the Hokage has a chance to respond, leaving him standing there in surprise. He blinks and sighs, muttering to himself, well, I guess I have no choice but to go along with this. Honestly, I should have let Danzo take the Hokage position and handle all the paperwork. Then again, it's probably for the best that I'm in charge. If Danzo had power, we'd still be at war. Shaking his head, he vanishes in a leaf body flicker. Inside the house, Mito gently leads little Naruko toward the family room, where her son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter are gathered. As they walk, she tells Naruko about the long-standing history between the Senju and Uzumaki clans. She shares the story of how her father secured an alliance between the two clans through her marriage to Hashirama, and how over time, that bond turned into love. Eventually, they reach the family room, where the others look curiously at the small red-haired child. Sitting alongside Atama and Tsunade is another woman. She has long blonde hair with two bangs that perfectly frame her face, fair skin, and green eyes. Her elegant presence adds to her striking appearance. This is Amaya Senju. The three family members glance at Mito with curiosity before Atama speaks up. Ka-chan, who is this child? Mito offers a warm smile and gently places a hand on Naruko's shoulder. This, Atama-chan, is Naruko Uzumaki. She is 4 years old and an orphan. As a member of my clan, I have chosen to take her in and raise her as family. Naruko, let me introduce you to my immediate family. The man before you is my only son and the next head of the Senju clan, Atama. The blonde-haired woman beside him is his wife, my daughter-in-law, Amaya. And finally, the little girl sitting on Atama's lap is my granddaughter, Tsunade. She's the same age as you. Naruko offers a polite wave. Hello, nice to meet you all. Tsunade hops off her father's lap and approaches Naruko, inspecting her closely. The intense stare makes Naruko feel a little uneasy. It's almost like looking at a miniature version of her mother figure. After a few moments, Tsunade smiles brightly and extends her hand. Nice to meet you, Naruko-san. Want to be friends? Naruko blinks in surprise but quickly returns the smile, shaking Tsunade's hand. Yeah, I'd like that, Tsunade-san. With that, Tsunade eagerly pulls Naruko over to the couch, and the group spends the rest of the day getting to know each other. They share a small family dinner before settling in for the night. Later, Mito leads Naruko to an empty room on the second floor and opens the door. This will be your room from now on, Naruko-chan. I know you've been through a lot recently, but I hope that, in time, you'll come to see us as family and this house is your home. Tomorrow morning, after breakfast, we'll go into the village to get you some new clothes and supplies for the academy. Rest well, little one. Good night. Naruko nods, smiling softly. Thank you, Mito Oba. I really appreciate this. Good night. Mito returns the smile before stepping away, allowing Naruko to enter her new room and close the door. She walks over to the bed, lies down, and closes her eyes. However, when she opens them again, she finds herself in the familiar space of her mindscape. Looking down at the water's reflection, she sees her 17-year-old self staring back, now with red hair and without the whisker marks. Lifting her gaze, she meets the towering form of Kurama. Well, we made it, partner, she says, exhaling. I have to admit, it was a shock seeing Sarutobi Gigi so young, but even more surprising to see Ba-chan as a little girl. The giant fox lets out a huff of amusement. Tell me about it, Kit. Based on what I've observed, I'd say we've traveled back roughly 15 years before the Second Shinobi War. Starting tomorrow, you'll need to focus on training and regaining your strength. If we're going to prevent things from spiraling out of control, you'll need to get stronger quickly. Also, be careful, don't tap into my chakra when you're around any leaf ninja. In this time period, I'm still sealed inside Mito, and that could cause a lot of trouble. Naruko nods in understanding and yawns. Got it. Well, I should actually get some sleep now. We'll talk later, Kurama. With that, she fades from her mindscape, finally allowing herself to rest for the days ahead. Senju main house. 5 a.m., the next day. The morning sun slowly rises over the horizon as a certain red-haired girl stirs from her slumber. Naruko stretches her arms overhead, rubbing the sleep from her eyes before letting out a small yawn. She swings her legs over the side of the bed, her feet meeting the cool wooden floor, and stands up. With a determined expression, she walks over to the window, taking in the early morning view. The sky is painted with soft hues of orange and pink, signaling the start of a new day. All right, time to get back in shape, she mutters to herself. Later, I have to go shopping with Mito Oba, so I'll have my clones handle shuriken practice and chakra control while I focus on physical training. I should also ask Mito Oba if she can get me some wrist and ankle weights to improve my strength and speed. With her plan set, she quietly exits her room, making sure not to wake anyone as she tiptoes downstairs. Once she reaches the front door, she slips on her sandals and swiftly makes her way out of the Senju compound. As she walks through the village, she contemplates where she can train without being disturbed. A location comes to mind, Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death. After about 20 minutes of walking, Naruko arrives at the training ground. Towering trees surround the area, enclosed by a tall fence with multiple gates. Without hesitation, she forms the ram hand seal, channels chakra into her legs, and leaps gracefully over the fence, landing smoothly on the other side. She ventures deeper into the forest until she finds a clearing with a river running through it. This spot is perfect, she remarks before forming a cross-shaped seal. Time to get started. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. With a sudden burst of smoke, 50 identical copies of Naruko appear. She frowns slightly at the number but quickly moves on, giving clear instructions. Alright, listen up. Split into 2 groups of 25. The first group will work on chakra control, start with leaf balancing. I refuse to struggle with chakra control this time around. The second group will focus on shuriken practice. Since we don't have actual shuriken or kunai yet, find some smooth rocks and sharpened sticks to use instead. The clones salute in acknowledgement before splitting off to carry out their respective tasks. Meanwhile, Naruko starts her own training with some stretches to loosen her muscles. She then begins running laps around the clearing, completing 20 circuits in about 25 minutes with only slight fatigue. Taking a short break, she kneels by the river, scooping cool water into her hands and drinking deeply. After 5 minutes, she resumes her training. She goes through 50 repetitions of push-ups, sit-ups, squats, jumping jacks, and finally, chin-ups using a sturdy tree branch. Once finished, she glances up at the sky, estimating the time to be around 7 a.m. Deciding it's best to head back, she turns to her clones. Dispel in groups of 5 every 2 hours, she instructs. They nod in response, and with that settled, Naruko leaves the forest and heads back to the Senju compound. As she walks through the village, she notices the shops beginning to open, merchants setting up their stalls for the day. Some villagers wave at her, and she politely waves back. 15 minutes later, she arrives at the Senju residence. Upon entering, she removes her sandals at the door and starts toward the stairs. However, a firm voice stops her in her tracks. "Where have you been, young lady?" Turning toward the sound, Naruko sees Mito Uzumaki standing in the family room, arms crossed over her chest. The older woman's expression is calm but clearly expecting an answer. Naruko chuckles nervously before responding. "I went out to train," she admits. "To-chan started my training before he passed away. He told me that no matter what happened, I should always stick to my daily routine. So I woke up early, found a training spot, and got started. I stretched, ran laps, and completed 50 sets of sit-ups, push-ups, jumping jacks, squats, and chin-ups. Then I worked on shuriken throwing and chakra control." Mito's eyes widened slightly at the detailed explanation. She hadn't expected such an intense regimen from a 4-year-old. Even Tsunade, who had been training under herself and the others since she was 3, only did 20 repetitions per exercise and had yet to start chakra control practice. After a brief moment of silence, Mito sighs and softens her expression. "It's good that you're dedicated to your training, Naruko-chan, but you didn't need to leave the compound. We have a training ground right behind the house. From now on, use that space for your morning practice. I don't want to wake up and find you missing again. I was worried you had run away." Naruko's eyes widen at that. She steps forward, wrapping her arms around the older woman in a sincere embrace, surprising her. "I'm sorry, Mito Oba. I never meant to make you worry. I promise from now on, I'll train in the backyard. Please forgive me." Mito smiles warmly and returns the hug. "You're forgiven, Naruko-chan. Now, go upstairs and take a shower. You need it." She chuckles lightly. "I'll have fresh clothes placed on your bed, and once you're dressed, come down for breakfast." Naruko beams up at her. "Thank you, Mito Oba." With that, she rushes upstairs, eager to get ready for the day ahead. A new beginning for Naruko. 20 minutes later, Naruko enters the dining room, now dressed in a fresh set of clothes. Her new outfit consists of dark gray pants that reach her shins, a short-sleeved red kimono-style shirt layered over mesh armor, and a dark orange sash tied around her waist. To the Senju family, she now looks much more like a proper ninja. The first to greet her is the ever-energetic Tsunade. "Good morning, Naruko-san," she says cheerfully. Naruko smiles and responds, "Good morning, Tsunade-san." She then turns to greet her parents. "Good morning, Itama-san, Amaya-san." The two reply in unison, "Good morning, Naruko-san." Naruko takes her seat next to Tsunade and across from Itama at the table, with Tsunade sitting across from her mother and Mito at the head. As they enjoy their breakfast, steamed rice, miso soup, grilled fish, rolled omelets, tamagoyaki, sukemono pickles, and dried seaweed, nori, Itama decides to bring up something on his mind. "So, Naruko-san, Ka-chan mentioned that you left at 5 this morning to train. You didn't even leave a note. Do you not trust us enough to let us know where you're going and what you're doing?" Naruko swallows her food as Mito gives her son a slight look of disapproval. Before she can say anything, Naruko responds, "It's not that I don't trust you, Itama-san. I'm just used to waking up early to train, and I didn't want to wake anyone. Plus, it never crossed my mind to leave a note since I'm usually with my To-chan when I train." Sensing the conversation becoming too serious, Tsunade quickly jumps in to lighten the mood. "Say, Naruko-san, what kind of training do you do? Maybe we could train together from now on." Naruko smiles gratefully at the blonde girl and answers, "It's nothing too intense. I start with 20 laps, then take a 5-minute break for water and to catch my breath. After that, I do 50 push-ups, sit-ups, squats, jumping jacks, and chin-ups. Then, I spend an hour practicing shuriken and kunai throwing, and the last hour is dedicated to chakra control training. I'm still working on the leaf sticking exercise." Itama and Amaya exchange glances, slightly surprised by the amount of training Naruko does at such a young age. They can't help but wonder why her father would ever start with such a demanding routine. Tsunade pouts. "You get to do chakra control training already? That's not fair. To-chan, Ka-chan, and Ba-chan said I have to wait until we start learning it at the academy." Naruko chuckles. "Well, to be fair, my Ka-chan started my chakra control training as soon as I unlocked my chakra. She said that because of my lineage, I have way more chakra than most kids my age. I think she mentioned I have as much chakra as a Chunin or something, so it's really important for me to learn how to control it." The adults nod in agreement, understanding the significance of chakra control for someone with high reserves. Itama decides to share his own experience. "Naruko is right, Su-chan. Since she's a full Uzumaki, her chakra levels are naturally much higher than most children, even more than yours." Tsunade turns to her father, about to ask how he knows that, but he answers before she can. "I know from experience. As a half Uzumaki, I have larger than average chakra reserves. Being half Senju helps with control, too. When I was your age, I had the chakra levels of a fresh Genin, while most kids my age had only academy level reserves. The only non-Uzumaki or Senju I've ever known to have that much chakra as a child was the third Hokage." Mito nods, remembering how much chakra the future Hokage had, even as a child. However, she clears her throat and changes the subject. "Enough discussion about that. Tsunade-chan, since Naruko is now part of our household, if you want and she agrees, she can help you with your chakra control training." Tsunade's face lights up with excitement, and she turns to Naruko, who gives a small smile and nods. Overjoyed, Tsunade hugs her tightly. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," she exclaims. Naruko blushes slightly at the unexpected hug but pats Tsunade's back in return. The adults chuckle at the interaction before everyone returns to their meal. Once breakfast is finished, Mito stands up and addresses the two children. "Naruko-san, Tsunade-chan, go put on your sandals. We're heading into the village to go shopping. Naruko-san needs more clothes, while Itama-chan's old clothes fit him okay. I don't want him wearing hand-me-downs. We also need to get Naruko-san the standard training sets of kunai, shuriken, senbon, and ninja wire." Tsunade immediately rushes to put on her sandals, while Naruko hesitates for a moment before shyly looking at Mito. "Mito-oba, could we also pick up some wrist and ankle weights? I'd like to use them in my training to improve my strength and speed. I heard my To-chan say once that weights can help build strength without interfering with growth." Mito is pleasantly surprised by Naruko's request and nods in approval. "That's an excellent idea, Naruko-san. In fact, I think I'll pick up an extra set for Tsunade-chan. Tell me, did your parents start teaching you any taijutsu styles?" Naruko shakes her head. "Not yet. To-chan showed me his own style, Dragon Fist, Ryuken, but he said it might not suit me. He planned to introduce me to other styles next year." Mito considers this and comes up with an idea. "Well, Tsunade-chan is already being trained in the Senju-style taijutsu by her father. Most kids at the academy either learn the academy style or their clan style. I'll take you to the Senju archives later so we can find a taijutsu style that suits you, okay?" Naruko nods enthusiastically, and the two girls hurry to put on their sandals before heading out. Their afternoon is spent going from shop to shop. Naruko chooses a new outfit, keeping the red kimono-style shirt and orange sash but changing the shirt's color to deep red to match her hair, with the Uzumaki swirl in white on the back. She swaps her gray pants for dark red ones and replaces her white sandals with black ones. She gets multiple sets of the outfit. At the Shinobi supply store, she picks up 2 holsters, 2 sets each of practice kunai, shuriken, and senbon, as well as 3 spools of ninja wire. Mito also buys 2 sets of ankle and wrist weights, with the wrist weights being 5 pounds each and the ankle weights 10 pounds each. After finishing their shopping, they stop by a small restaurant for lunch. Mito takes the opportunity to explain the importance of the weights to Tsunade and hands her one set. Once lunch is over, they head home. Later, Mito takes Naruko to the Senju clan archives, a vast library filled with scrolls on taijutsu, ninjutsu, genjutsu, kenjutsu, and even fuinjutsu. Naruko searches through the taijutsu section until she feels drawn to a particular scroll. The blue scroll, marked with an image of stars forming the Big Dipper, is titled Hokuto Shinken, Big Dipper God Fist. Excited, Naruko brings it to Mito. I found it. The perfect style for me to learn. Mito is momentarily surprised, as this martial art is said to be ancient and incredibly powerful. However, she smiles. You certainly aim high, Naruko-san. Very well, you may study this style. Now, let's head back upstairs and get ready for dinner. As the day comes to an end, Naruko looks forward to her new life with the Senju family, excited for what the future holds. Leaf Academy. The next day. The Leaf Village Academy stands tall, its large red painted walls displaying the kanji for fire at the front. As a new school week begins, children of all ages gather outside, chatting excitedly with their parents as they wait for the doors to open. Among the cheerful crowd, two boys stand apart from the rest. The first boy leans casually against a tree near the entrance. He is slightly taller than most his age, standing at 3 feet 9 inches. His spiky white hair and dark eyes give him a distinctive look, and 2 red markings extend from the corners of his eyes. His skin has a slight tan. His name is Jiraiya, and he has grown up in the village orphanage. The second boy stands against the side of the building. He is of average height for his age, standing at 3 feet 6 inches. His long, straight black hair reaches the middle of his back, and his pale skin gives him a somewhat delicate appearance. However, his most striking feature is his golden, slit-pupiled eyes, which are surrounded by a purple marking that extends partway down the sides of his nose. His name is Orochimaru Hebi, and he recently lost his parents during a mission. Suddenly, the lively chatter of the crowd fades as everyone's attention shifts in one direction. Jiraiya and Orochimaru follow their gazes to see what has captured the interest of so many. The Senju family has arrived, but this time, they are accompanied by someone new. Walking alongside them is a young girl with short, spiky red hair and bright blue eyes. She has lightly tanned skin and is dressed in an all-red outfit. While most of the crowd whispers in curiosity about the girl's identity, Jiraiya and Orochimaru have their own thoughts. TCH, another popular kid. Bet she's full of herself, Jiraiya thinks to himself. She looks strong. Maybe she'll finally be someone worth testing my skills against, Orochimaru muses. The crowd continues murmuring, wondering who this new girl is and why she is with Mito-sama and her family. Soon, the academy doors open, and a group of Chunin instructors step out, guiding the children inside. The red-haired girl, Naruko Uzumaki, waves goodbye to Mito and Amaya before Tsunade grabs her wrist and excitedly pulls her toward their classroom. Mito and Amaya chuckle at the sight before heading off. Inside, a teacher stands at the front of the classroom, greeting students as they enter. He is an average-sized man, about 5 feet 9 inches, with short, mousy brown hair and gray eyes. He wears the standard Chunin attire, a dark blue shinobi uniform with gray armor covering his chest and back. His name is Ikusu Hakabana, a veteran ninja with 15 years of experience. He looks down at Tsunade and Naruko. Tsunade-san, please take your seat. And you must be the new student I was told about, he says with a small smile. Tsunade grins at her friend before hurrying to her seat. Naruko nods at the teacher, listening as he continues. I've been informed that you're a member of the Uzumaki clan and about your special circumstances. Just so we're clear, I run a fair classroom. I don't care what clan you're from or who you're related to, in here, you're just another student. Understood? Naruko nods firmly. Understood, sensei. I'm here to learn and become the best shinobi I can be. Her confident response makes Ikusu smirk slightly. Good. My name is Ikusu Hakabana, but you can call me Ikusu sensei. Class is about to start. I'll call you in shortly so you can introduce yourself. As he heads inside, Naruko hears him instructing the class to settle down. After taking attendance, he announces, "All right, class, before we begin, we have a new student joining us today. Please do your best to give her a warm welcome. Come in." Taking a deep breath, Naruko exhales slowly before stepping into the classroom. Her sharp blue eyes quickly scan the room, searching for any familiar faces. She immediately spots Jiraiya and Orochimaru on opposite sides of the classroom, both watching her closely. Then, she notices another familiar face, someone with spiky silver hair. It only takes a moment to recognize him as Sakumo Hatake, the father of Kakashi Hatake. She steps to the front of the class, offering a friendly smile and a small wave. Aiku's gestures for her to introduce herself. Just your name, likes, dislikes, and dreams for the future. Naruko nods and speaks clearly. Hello, my name is Naruko Uzumaki. My likes include ramen, learning new things, training, and gardening. My dislikes are waiting 3 minutes for ramen to cook and anyone who puts others down. My dreams for the future are to become a great shinobi, bring lasting peace to the world, and have a family. The classroom erupts with mixed reactions. Many of the girls, except for Tsunade and a dark-haired one, seem charmed by her dream of having a family. Some of the boys scoff at her idea of lasting peace, considering it unrealistic, except for Jiraiya, Sakumo, and Orochimaru, who seem intrigued. Aikus clears his throat. Alright, thank you for that, Naruko-san. You can take a seat next to Sakumo. He gestures toward the silver-haired boy sitting in the middle section of the third row. Naruko nods and moves toward the seat, settling in beside Sakumo. And so, her journey at the academy begins. 6 months later. It has now been 6 months since Naruko traveled back in time, 6 months since she became part of the Senju family, and 6 months since she joined the academy. During this time, she has trained diligently, pushing herself to improve every day. Her daily routine begins at 5 a.m. when she heads to the forest of training to practice. She now creates 100 shadow clones, dividing them into 10 groups, each focusing on a specific skill. The first group refines chakra control, progressing to tree walking after mastering leaf sticking. The second group hones precision in shuriken techniques. The third works on the substitution jutsu, kawarimi no jutsu, the fourth on the transformation jutsu, henge no jutsu, and the fifth on the clone jutsu, bunshin no jutsu. The last 5 groups focus on advanced training. The sixth group practices the body flicker jutsu, shunshin no jutsu, a high-speed movement technique. The 7th and 8th groups work on the foundational stances of the Big Dipper God Fist, a martial arts style that has been progressing well. The 9th group studies human anatomy to enhance her taijutsu, and the 10th group learns sealing techniques, fuinjutsu, which Mito began teaching her 2 months ago. Physically, Naruko has become significantly stronger, especially with weighted training, wearing 10-pound weights on her wrists and 20-pound weights on her ankles. She also trains in the mornings with Tsunade, further improving her endurance and combat skills. At the academy, she has risen to the top of the class and is recognized as a prodigy alongside her new friends, Sakumo Hatake and Orochimaru. Naruko has built strong bonds with several classmates beyond Tsunade. Sakumo, much more outgoing than his future son, often spars with her outside of class. Another close friend is Jiraiya, whom she befriended after standing up for him when he was teased about his academic struggles. Since then, the two have trained together, with Naruko helping him refine his shuriken techniques and fundamental ninja skills. Orochimaru, on the other hand, sees Naruko as a rival rather than a friend. He prefers to train and study alone, but Naruko is determined to change that, believing she can be a positive influence on him. A recent development in her new life is that the Senju family will soon welcome another member. Amaya is 4 months pregnant. Tsunade is overjoyed about becoming a big sister and has vowed to protect her future sibling. Naruko simply offered her congratulations to Atama and Amaya before returning to her calligraphy practice, an essential skill for mastering sealing techniques. With Amaya expecting, Atama has temporarily stepped away from missions, opting for a role in the interrogation division. This also allows him more time to train Tsunade and help Naruko refine her taijutsu by providing a skilled sparring partner. Today, however, is an especially important day at the academy. The students will begin learning about their elemental affinities, a crucial step toward mastering advanced ninjutsu. For Naruko, this will also mark the beginning of properly understanding her unique abilities. Leaf Academy, Aiku's classroom. Veteran instructor Aikus surveys his students, impressed by their growth over the past 6 months. Confident in their progress, he is ready to introduce a new and exciting lesson. Clearing his throat to get their attention, he begins. Alright, class, today we're moving on to something entirely new. As you know, we've been teaching you the 3 fundamental jutsu, the substitution, transformation, and clone techniques. These were meant to prepare you for more advanced techniques. Today, we take the first step into learning those higher-level skills. The classroom falls silent, every student focused intently on the lesson. Aiku smirks internally at their enthusiasm. Lifting 2 stacks of paper for the class to see, he continues, today, we will be testing your elemental affinities. Every ninja possesses a natural alignment to one of the 5 elemental chakra natures, which makes techniques of that element easier to learn and those of opposing elements more difficult. This paper I'm holding is called chakra paper, and each of you will receive a piece. When you channel your chakra into it, the paper will react based on your affinity. His tone becomes more serious as he adds, listen carefully, because I won't be repeating myself. In unison, the class responds, yes, Aiku-sensei. Nodding in approval, he shifts into what Naruko privately calls his lecture mode and explains. There are 5 primary elemental affinities, each causing the paper to react in a specific way. If your affinity is fire, the paper will burn. If it's water, it will become damp. If it's earth, it will crumble into dust. If it's lightning, the paper will crinkle. And if it's wind, the paper will split in half. To demonstrate, he takes a piece of chakra paper, holds it between his fingers, and channels his chakra into it. The paper instantly burns to ash, revealing his fire affinity. The 5-year-old students stare in awe before breaking into excited chatter about their potential affinities. With a firm stomp on the floor, Aikus regains control of the classroom. All right. When I call your name, come up, take a piece of paper, and channel your chakra. He begins calling names, and while Naruko doesn't pay much attention to most of them, she listens closely when her friends are tested. First up is Sakumo Hatake. The silver-haired boy approaches the front, takes a piece of chakra paper, and channels his chakra. The paper crinkles and emits tiny sparks. Aikus lets out a low whistle. Impressive. Our first special case. You have a lightning affinity, and from the looks of it, a strong one. Congratulations, Sakumo-san. Sakumo nods with a proud smile and returns to his seat. Next, Orochimaru heavy steps forward. He does the same as the others, but when he channels his chakra, the paper splits cleanly in 2. Aikus raises an eyebrow. 2 prodigies in a row. Orochimaru-san, you have a wind affinity, which is incredibly rare in the land of fire. There's no doubt you'll grow into a formidable shinobi. Orochimaru simply nods, taking the information in stride before returning to his seat. Naruko's turn is approaching, and she can't help but feel a surge of anticipation. She knows this will be a defining moment in her journey to mastering her unique abilities. Orochimaru smirked as he returned to his seat, while Naruko once again drifted into her own thoughts, tuning out Aikus-sensei's lecture. That is, until she heard another familiar name being called. Jiraiya no name. She watched as the white-haired boy scowled at the added no name but still made his way to the teacher to collect his paper. As soon as he touched it, the paper burned to ash, revealing his fire affinity. Jiraiya simply tossed the remaining ash aside and returned to his seat. A few moments later, Tsunade's name was called, grabbing Naruko's attention. The blonde girl eagerly took the chakra paper, hoping to have inherited her grandfather's dual water and earth affinities, which would indicate the potential for wood release. However, when the paper crumpled into a ball, signaling a lightning affinity, disappointment flickered across her face. With a frustrated sigh, she tossed the paper into the trash and returned to her seat, pouting. After that, Naruko tuned out again, her mind drifting toward the storage seal Mito had taught her. She pondered ways to improve it until she heard the next name of interest, Izumi Uchiha. The dark-haired girl had the signature black eyes of the Uchiha, though her mid-back length hair and kind expression set her apart from the more serious demeanor typical of her clan. She accepted the chakra paper and channeled her energy into it. As expected, it burned to ash, revealing a fire affinity, though she seemed a bit disappointed. Perhaps she had hoped for something different. Then, finally, Naruko heard her name. Naruko Uzumaki, you're up. A bright smile spread across her face as she hopped out of her seat and eagerly made her way to the front of the classroom. She took the chakra paper with excitement, placing it between her fingers before channeling her energy. What happened next shocked the entire class, including the usually composed Aikus-sensei. The chakra paper split into 4 separate pieces, each reacting differently. One became damp, one burned to ash, another crumbled into dust, and the last emitted small sparks. Internally, Naruko found the stunned expressions amusing, but outwardly, she tilted her head in curiosity and asked, "Did I do something wrong, sensei? What does this mean?" Aikus-sensei quickly composed himself, clearing his throat before responding, "No, Naruko-san, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just extremely rare to see something like this. This result means you have a natural affinity for all 5 elemental chakra natures. You have incredible potential ahead of you." Naruko nodded, taking in the information before heading back to her seat, chuckling at the stunned expression on her friend Sakumo's face. Despite the class continuing as usual, whispers spread among the students, each wondering how she had managed such an extraordinary result. After the academy let out for the day, Aiku-sensei informed the students that they would be given basic E-rank jutsu of their elemental affinities to practice for the next 6 months. With that in mind, Naruko left with Tsunade, heading toward the Senju household. Upon arrival, they found Mito waiting at the entrance. Standing beside her was Hiruzen Sarutobi, dressed in his official Hokage robes and hat. Naruko tensed slightly at the sight of him, but Tsunade greeted the adults in a casual, albeit slightly grumpy tone. "Hey, Ba-chan. Saru Oji-san." Mito noticed her granddaughter's sour mood and asked, "What's wrong, Tsunade-chan? You look upset." The blonde sighed before responding, "We had our elemental affinities tested today, and mine is lightning." Blinking in confusion, Mito asked, "Why is that a bad thing?" Tsunade pouted, clearly frustrated. "I wanted to have the same affinities as Hashijiji. I wanted to use wood release like him and prove I'm worthy of carrying on his legacy." At that, Sarutobi knelt down, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulders. "Tsunade-chan, you don't need Hashirama-sensei's abilities to continue his legacy. You are his legacy. His strength, his kindness, and his will of fire live on in you. That's what truly matters." Hearing this, Tsunade felt reassured. Smiling, she rushed inside, leaving Naruko alone with the two adults. Noticing their expectant expressions, she chuckled nervously. 1 year later, training in the forest. A full year had passed since Naruko's remarkable affinity revelation. That day, when she returned home, Mito and Sarutobi had asked her how she managed such a rare affinity. Playing innocent, she simply shrugged, claiming she had no idea since her parents had never used elemental jutsu in front of her. Sarutobi had offered her the chance to graduate early to focus on mastering her abilities, but she declined, choosing instead to graduate alongside her friends. The Hokage respected her decision, and life at the academy continued as normal. Over the year, Naruko and her friends had grown taller and stronger. The competition for Rookie of the Year had become a three-way tie between Naruko, Sakumo, and Orochimaru, while Jiraiya, despite Naruko's help, remained at the bottom of the class due to his struggles with taijutsu and clone jutsu. Meanwhile, Tsunade had solidified her place as the strongest kunoichi in their class. Unbeknownst to Naruko, Tsunade had also begun to develop a fondness for her, admiring her kindness, determination, and the way she cared for others, including her baby brother, Nawaki, who had been born 8 months ago. Today was a day off from the academy, and Naruko could be found in her usual clearing in the Forest of Death. To avoid raising suspicion at home, she had left behind a strengthened shadow clone at the Senju compound. Taking a deep breath, she prepared for the next stage of her training, learning to harness the 3 special abilities granted to her by the tailed beasts. She made the cross-shaped hand seal and called out, "Multi-shadow clone jutsu." In a puff of smoke, 200 clones appeared. Over the past year, her chakra reserves had increased back to an elite level, allowing her to train at an even greater intensity. Today marked the beginning of an exciting new challenge. Naruko stepped forward, ready to give instructions. "All right, everyone, split into groups of 20. Group 1, continue your chakra control exercises, combine water walking with the leaf and kunai balancing techniques." The first group responded with a sharp salute before heading to the river to begin their training. Turning to the next team, she continued, "Group 2, work on the stances from the Kenjutsu style I found in the Senju archives. Group 3, you're moving on to the next kata for Hokuto Shinken." The second and third groups quickly moved to their designated training areas. The Kenjutsu style Naruko referenced was Hiten meets Harugi Ryu, Flying Heaven Governed Sword style, an ancient technique she had discovered in the Senju archives. She had developed a strong interest in swordsmanship over the past 6 months, largely due to her friendship with Sakumo. She turned to the next 2 groups. Group 4, your task is to study the intermediate anatomy books. Group 5, work on the new sealing techniques that Mito Obasan taught me. Though Group 4 groaned at the prospect of reading, they still followed orders and got to work. Shifting her attention once more, Naruko addressed the next teams. Groups 6 and 7, divide into 4 smaller squads of 10. Each squad will focus on a different chakra nature, earth, fire, wind, and water, using leaves as a medium. The 2 groups saluted and immediately set to work. Finally, she turned to the last 3 groups. "All right, groups 8, 9, and 10, your focus is on developing our bloodline techniques. Group 8, you're working on magnet release. Group 9, lava release. Group 10, boil release. Let's get started." With a determined energy, the three groups dispersed to begin their specialized training. Meanwhile, Naruko took a knee and retrieved a storage scroll. Unsealing its contents, she pulled out weighted metal plates, adding an extra one to each wrist and ankle. With this adjustment, her wrist weights now totaled 50 pounds each, while her ankle weights increased to 60 pounds. After resealing the remaining plates, she tucked the scroll away and launched into her daily exercise routine. Her regimen had grown significantly over time, 50 laps, followed by 100 repetitions each of push-ups, sit-ups, squats, jumping jacks, and chin-ups. Thanks to her discipline, along with a well-balanced diet, she had grown taller and stronger. Now standing at 4 feet 1 inch, she was among the tallest in her class, just behind Jiraiya, who had reached 4 feet 3 inches. After completing her workout, she checked the time and realized she only had a few minutes before breakfast. With a quick body flicker, she moved from the training grounds to her room in a series of swift jumps. As she arrived, she found one of her shadow clones waiting for her, looking just as exhausted as she felt. Dispelling it, she made her way to the shower, allowing the warm water to wash away the fatigue from her training. As she stood under the water, her thoughts drifted to the upcoming graduation in just 2 months. She wondered about her future teammates and who her Jonin sensei would be. Once she was clean and dressed, she headed downstairs for breakfast. Upon entering the dining area, she found Amaya and little Nawaki already at the table. Smiling warmly, she greeted them, "Good morning, Amaya-chan. And a special good morning to you, Nawaki-kun." She gently tickled the baby's tummy, causing him to giggle and clap his tiny hands. Amaya, a blonde woman with a kind expression, returned her smile. "Good morning, Naruko-kun. Did you have a good training session with Tsunade-chan and Tama-kun?" The red-haired girl nodded enthusiastically. "I did. Though Tsunade-chan still can't quite keep up with me. But she's getting close, it must be her quarter Uzumaki heritage." Amaya chuckled, just as the girl in question entered the room. Tsunade had changed noticeably over the past 2 years. Now standing at 3 feet 9 inches, she had a slender, athletic build due to her rigorous training. Her blonde hair was styled into a high ponytail, and she wore a light green short-skirted kimono, cinched at the waist with a dark blue obi. The slit in the left side of the skirt allowed for easier movement. A hint of mesh under armor was visible beneath her outfit, and she wore red arm warmers that concealed her wrist weights. While her feet were currently bare, bandages wrapped around her ankles and extended halfway up her shins, hiding her ankle weights. Naruko observed her for a moment, noting how much she had grown. Noticing his gaze, Tsunade smirked and teased, "See something you like, Naruko-chan tilde?" Realizing she had been staring, Naruko blushed slightly and shook her head. "Sorry, Tsunade-chan, I was just thinking about how much you've grown since we became friends." The blonde girl smiled at the compliment. "You've grown too, Naruko-kun. I don't care what anyone says, you're the strongest shinobi in the academy. Even Orochimaru and Sakumo are a step behind you." Naruko nodded in appreciation as they took their usual seats at the table. A moment later, Itama and Mito arrived, and breakfast officially began. A friendly challenge. After the meal, Itama leaned forward and looked at the 2 young shinobi. "Hey, Su-chan, Naruko-kun, how about a spar? The 2 of you against me." Tsunade's eyes lit up with excitement, while Naruko smirked confidently. "You really think you can take on both of us, old man? After all, we're the strongest students in the academy." The brown-haired man let out a hearty laugh. "Ha ha ha. I like that confidence. As expected from an Uzumaki. But don't underestimate me, I received private training from 2 Hokages and an Uzumaki seal master. Let's take this outside." The 3 of them stepped onto the backyard training grounds, within clear view of the porch. Standing across from their 30-year-old opponent, the 2 6-year-olds readied themselves. Tsunade and her father both assumed the Senju-style taijutsu stance, 1000 branch fist, a technique designed to overwhelm opponents with swift and unpredictable strikes. Naruko, on the other hand, took a different approach. She settled into the Hokuto Shinken stance, planting her feet firmly apart with her left leg leading. Her hands were positioned precisely, her right hand held low near her thigh, and her left hand raised high, both open-palmed. Without a word, the match began, and the 3 shinobi rushed forward to engage in an intense sparring session. Leaf Academy. 2 months later, graduation day. The long-awaited day had finally arrived. The students of the Leaf Academy were ready to take their first steps toward becoming true ninja. Excitement filled the air as everyone gathered early, eager to complete the final tests and officially earn the title of Genin. The graduation exam consisted of several parts, each designed to assess different aspects of a ninja's abilities. The first was a written test, featuring 20 questions that evaluated their strategic thinking and knowledge of history. The second part focused on precision and accuracy. Students were given 10 kunai and 10 shuriken, with each bullseye hit scoring 10 points for kunai and each successful strike to key target points on straw dummies earning 10 points for shuriken. Many students from civilian backgrounds scored around 61/100ths, just meeting the passing requirement. The clan children performed better, typically scoring between 70 and 80 on both kunai and shuriken. However, a few students stood out. Tsunade achieved an impressive 91/100ths in both categories, while Izumi Uchiha scored 85/100ths in kunai, with one throw slightly off-center, and 91/100ths in shuriken. Jiraiya also showed notable improvement, earning 85s in both areas. The top three performers, Naruko Uzumaki, Sakumo Hatake, and Orochimaru, all demonstrated exceptional skill. Each of them scored a perfect 100/100ths in both tests. Naruko, never one to shy away from a challenge, decided to showcase her abilities by throwing all of her kunai and shuriken at once, while blindfolded. The third test was a taijutsu spar against a Chunin instructor. To pass, students had to last at least 2 minutes in the match, while those who managed to stay in the fight for the full 5 minutes without being forced out of the ring or subdued earned a perfect score. Many students from civilian families barely managed to endure the required 2 minutes before being bested. Clan students fared better, averaging around 3 minutes before either forfeiting or being pushed out of the ring. Tsunade, facing none other than instructor Ikus, demonstrated remarkable endurance, lasting 4 minutes and 25 seconds before she was overcome. Her rival, Izumi, lasted 4 minutes and 15 seconds against a skilled Chunin kunoichi. Jiraiya, utilizing the Academy's standard combat techniques, held out for 3 minutes and 50 seconds before being defeated. Once again, Naruko, Sakumo, and Orochimaru stood out. Sakumo was the first to step up, lasting the full 5 minutes and even forcing his opponent to his knees. Orochimaru followed, also enduring the full 5 minutes before ultimately outmaneuvering his opponent and forcing them out of the ring. Naruko, as usual, went last. Facing off against instructor Ikus, she lasted the entire 5 minutes while utilizing her unique Hokuto Shinken fighting style. With precise strikes, she skillfully targeted pressure points, temporarily restricting movement in her opponent's left arm, right leg, and spine. However, once the match concluded, she quickly reversed the effects, earning the instructor's gratitude. He commended her for her skill, acknowledging that her technique would be incredibly formidable when fully mastered. With 3 tests completed, only one remained, the ninjutsu portion. According to what Naruko had heard, this section would involve demonstrating the 3 fundamental academy jutsu, along with an additional E rank and D rank elemental jutsu. One by one, students were called into a back room for evaluation. Most returned proudly wearing their newly awarded headbands, either tied around their foreheads, necks, or arms. A few civilian students, unfortunately, did not pass, but all of the clan students succeeded. Naruko paid close attention when her friends were called. Tsunade was up first. She flawlessly executed the basic techniques, performing a smooth substitution with a fern in the corner, transforming into a perfect replica of her grandmother, and creating 2 flawless clones. She then displayed the body flicker technique, leaving behind a swirl of leaves as she moved rapidly across the room. For her elemental jutsu, she showcased lightning release, static strings, Raiten, Saiki Suji no Jutsu, generating threads of electricity that connected to a training dummy and delivered light shocks. She followed this with lightning release, lightning bolt, Raiten, Reikurai no Jutsu, forming a concentrated bolt of lightning in her hand before directing it at the dummy. The energy discharge left faint electrical marks on its surface. Her precise execution earned her a well-deserved headband, which she requested in green and proudly tied around her head. As she stepped back into the room, Naruko smiled at her in approval, making her cheeks flush slightly as she returned to her seat. Next was Jiraiya, who looked noticeably nervous. Once inside, he substituted with a chair, then transformed into a perfect likeness of the third Hokage. Though he struggled slightly, he managed to create 2 functioning clones and executed a minimal distance body flicker, just meeting the passing requirement. For his elemental jutsu, he used fire release, burning leaf, Kaden, Tensho Raifu no Jutsu, generating a small number of burning leaves from his mouth and directing them at the dummy. While the technique caused minor irritation, it demonstrated effective chakra control. He followed up with fire release, flash fan, Katen, Senko Uchiwa no Jutsu, in which he inhaled deeply, formed 3 hand seals, and exhaled a brief wave of flames shaped like a V. The attack left slight scorch marks on the dummy. With his successful performance, Jiraiya received his headband, giving Naruko a thumbs up on his way back, clearly grateful for the extra training she had helped him with. Orochimaru entered next, his usual calm demeanor unshaken. He performed the basic techniques with precision, even transforming into an exact replica of his late father. For his elemental jutsu, he demonstrated wind release, wind clone, futon, kaze bunshine no jutsu, creating a duplicate made of air, which then struck a training dummy before dissipating into a gust of wind. He followed with wind release, projectile deflection blast, futon, hasa tai taami bakuatsu, expelling a controlled burst of wind that forcefully pushed the dummy backward. Upon completing the test, he secured his headband around his left arm and returned to his seat without a word. Sakumo followed, completing the first 4 techniques with ease. For his E-rank technique, he utilized lightning release, lightning clone, Raiten, Raiko bunshine no jutsu, creating a solid lightning-based clone that attacked the dummy with electrified strikes before vanishing. For his D-rank jutsu, he performed lightning release, electron sphere, Raiten, denshi no jutsu, forming a crackling orb of electricity and tossing it at the dummy, sending sparks across its surface upon impact. Exiting with his headband tied around his forehead, Sakumo's already spiky hair seemed even wilder. Finally, Izumi Uchiha stepped up, exuding confidence. Like the others, she flawlessly executed the fundamental techniques. For her E-rank fire jutsu, she used fire release, finger flame, katen, Shushihono no jutsu, channeling fire chakra to her fingertip to create a small flame, which she playfully used to engrave a message into the dummy's surface. She followed with fire release, flame knife, katen, hono nefu no jutsu, infusing a kunai with fire chakra, igniting it in flames, and throwing it with precision, cleanly slicing through the target. With her headband tied as a hairband, she walked back confidently to her seat. The graduation exam was nearly complete, and all eyes were now on one last person, Naruko Uzumaki. Graduation day. At last, Aiku stepped forward and called out, "Naruko Uzumaki." The red-haired girl stood up, preparing to head to the back of the room when she heard her friends cheering her on. First was Tsunade, who grinned and called out, "You've got this, Naruko." Then Sakumo gave a confident thumbs up. "Show them what you're made of." Jiraiya, arms crossed, smirked. "Go out there and impress them." Naruko turned and smiled warmly at her friends before walking into the exam room. Once inside, she found herself standing before Aikus-sensei and 2 other Chunin instructors. Aikus, the man who had guided her training for nearly 2 years, addressed her. "All right, Naruko-san. To begin, you'll need to demonstrate the substitution jutsu, transformation jutsu, clone jutsu, and finally, the body flicker technique. Since you possess all 5 chakra natures, we also need you to showcase 1 jutsu from each element." Naruko nodded in understanding but then raised her hand with a question. "Sensei, if I perform a different type of clone technique, like the earth release, shadow clone, Doten, cage bunshine, would that count for both my clone jutsu requirement and my earth element demonstration?" Aikus and the other 2 instructors blinked in surprise before discussing the request quietly among themselves. After a brief conversation, Aikus turned back to her with a nod. "We've decided to allow it. As long as you're successfully creating clones, the specific technique doesn't matter." Naruko grinned and got to work. First, she performed the substitution jutsu, swapping places with one of the instructors before quickly switching back. Next, she executed the transformation jutsu, seamlessly shifting into a flawless copy of the first Hokage. Then, keeping to her earlier plan, she performed earth release, shadow clone, forming 2 clones made from solid mud. As they dispersed, small puddles of mud remained behind, and Naruko gave an apologetic smile. Moving on to her elemental jutsu, she started with water release, gunshot, Suten, Teppodama. After weaving hand signs, she inhaled deeply and then launched several high-speed spheres of water toward a training dummy, hitting their mark with precision. Once a fresh dummy was set up, she performed fire release, fireball jutsu, Kaden, Hosenka, creating a vibrant orange sphere of flames that set the target ablaze. The Chunin quickly extinguished the fire before she continued. Next was lightning release, lightning ball, Raiten, Raikyu. She raised her hands above her head, forming a small sphere of electricity, then sent it flying at the dummy. Upon impact, electricity crackled around the target. For her final technique, wind release, gale palm, futon, repushu, she threw a kunai into the air before clapping her hands, releasing a powerful gust of wind that propelled the weapon forward at high speed, embedding it deeply into the target. As she completed her last jutsu, the instructors exchanged approving nods. Excellent work, Naruko. Congratulations. With a wide smile, she took a blue headband and tied it around her forehead, just like in the old days. When she stepped out of the room, Aikus followed behind her. As she reached her desk, Sakumo greeted her with a high five. The Chunin instructor cleared his throat to address the room. First, congratulations to all who have graduated today. You have taken the first step toward becoming remarkable shinobi. For those who didn't pass, don't be discouraged, there's always next time. You all have the next week off, but be back here at 10 a.m. sharp next Monday for your team assignments and to meet your Jonin sensei. With that, the instructor dismissed them, and the room erupted with excitement. Naruko barely had a moment before her friends gathered around. Tsunade threw her arms around her in a quick hug. We did it, Naruko. We're one step closer to becoming true ninja. Naruko chuckled, patting her on the back. Yeah, we are, Tsunade-chan. But next week, we'll find out who our teachers will be. I have a feeling we're going to be paired with some powerful mentors. Sakumo smirked. I just hope I end up on a team with you. With the right combination, we could be unstoppable. Jiraiya waved a hand. Enough of that, let's celebrate. Pretty boy Hatake is treating us to lunch. Naruko grinned. Sounds good to me. That's very generous of you, Sakumo. Tsunade nodded sagely. Truly a kind-hearted friend. Sakumo, now speechless, simply opened and closed his mouth as he tried to protest. As they talked, Naruko noticed two classmates standing off to the side, Izumi Uchiha and Orochimaru. She got up and walked toward them, starting with Izumi. The dark-haired girl glanced at her with curiosity. Can I help you, Uzumaki-san? Naruko smiled warmly. Just call me Naruko, I'm not really a fan of formalities. I wanted to invite you to lunch. A bunch of us are celebrating, and I thought you might like to come along. Sakumo is covering the bill. Izumi narrowed her eyes slightly. Is this a pity invitation? Because I don't need that. Naruko shook her head. Not at all. I just figured there's a good chance we might end up on the same team, and it's better to get to know potential teammates now rather than later. Besides, everyone could use friends, even an Uchiha. Izumi studied her face carefully, looking for any sign of insincerity, but found none. With a small smile, she nodded. In that case, I'd be happy to join you. Naruko beamed. Great. Head over and introduce yourself to the others. I have one more person to talk to. As Izumi made her way to the group, Naruko approached Orochimaru, who was gathering his things. The pale boy glanced up at her. Did you need something, Naruko-san? She looked at him seriously. You don't have to be alone, Orochimaru. I know that losing family at a young age is incredibly painful. I lost my parents, too. It's not something you ever truly get over. His golden eyes widened slightly before he lowered his head, his bangs hiding his expression. How do you do it? How can you still smile? Naruko placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You take it one day at a time. And you remember that your parents loved you. They wouldn't want you to be trapped in sadness forever. They'd want you to make friends, keep moving forward, and live an amazing life. Orochimaru stared at her in quiet astonishment. He thought of his father, imagining the stern but kind man shaking his head and telling him to go make friends instead of isolating himself. After a moment, he offered a small smile. Thank you, Naruko-san. I'll try to keep that in mind. Naruko grinned. You can start by joining us for lunch. Our fellow genius Sakumo is covering it. Orochimaru chuckled softly. Lead the way. With that, the 6 newly graduated Jonin walked out together, heading to a local barbecue restaurant. As they left, Aikus watched them go with a knowing smile. That group. I have a feeling they're going to change the world. And he couldn't wait to see where their journey would take them. Guys, that's a wrap for the first part. Hope you enjoyed it and found it worthwhile. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, it really helps. Stay tuned for more, and thanks for your support. Catch you in the next one. 6 Path Weeb.